Yeah, we're good. We're good. Okay, everybody good? Yeah. Okay, whenever you're ready. Hello, my name is Shelby Harrah-Ferguson, and my American artist is Alfred Hitchcock. So I have a question for you guys. How many of you guys like horror, thriller, or suspense movies and TV shows?
Yeah.
All right. Well, all of those movies and TV shows that you guys love so much wouldn't be as great as they are today if Hitchcock had not introduced those genres and made them more socially acceptable. Hitchcock told all of his stories through relatable plots, brilliant dialogue, and intelligent and effective techniques. And he never forgot to add a splash of murder and mystery to all of his stories. But before we dive into his mind-bending masterpieces, we need to figure out a little bit about who Hitchcock was. So, who is he? He was born with the name Alfred Joseph Hitchcock in 1899, and he died in 1980 of kidney failure. His art form and occupation, he was a film director, and he was known as the master of suspense. He was born in the suburb of Leytonstone, located in London, England, and his childhood was very lonely and sheltered, partly due to his obesity and partly due to his family's very strict Catholic religion that he didn't like or believe in. But his life got a lot better in 1926 when he married his wife Alma Reville, and they had a daughter in 1929 by the name of Patricia Hitchcock, and she's still alive today at the age of 85 and was featured in a lot of his films. So this is his daughter, him, and his wife. Okay, so his career had to start somewhere, so getting into film. He went to school. He went to college at St. Ignatius College, located in England, and it was a Jesuit preparatory school. At that time, he had a cable company job where he was introduced to films and TV shows, and that caused him to switch over to performing arts at his college. And he, later in his life, he got a job at a film industry, like drawing sets and stuff. And he also got his first directing experience when the director of Always Tell Your Wife fell ill, and he got to complete the movie for him. And the film industry was so impressed with that they let him continue making movies. And he made movies in England from 1925 to 1939, and he made about 26 films. He then took his family and moved to America in 1940. And he made films in America from 1940 to 1976, and he made about 28 films. And he's not just a director, he was also a writer, a title designer, an art director, an assistant director, etc. And this is some of his England films: The Pleasure Gardens, The Lodger, The Lady Vanishes, Jamaica Inn, and Rebecca. And American films, these are some of my favorites: The Birds, North by Northwest, Rear Window, Vertigo, and Psycho. So how many of you guys have heard of at least one of these American films? All right, so there has to be a reason why his films are still remembered, and a lot of people say it's because of his techniques, which brings me to my next slide, techniques. So the audience was the most important thing to Hitchcock, and so all of his techniques were based around his audience. And his first technique was emotion. Not only did he want his actors to provide the right emotion that he wanted in his films, but he also wanted the audience to react to that emotion in the right way. And he achieved this with wide shots, which is basically a shot where there's an actor on one side of the screen and an actor on the other side, and it shows the distance between the two, and it makes the audience feel for them. And he also achieved it with close-ups to show the emotion of the character in the film, and that basically made the audience feel that emotion that the actor was feeling at the time. And he also liked to use as little dialogue as possible, which is his next technique, visual cinema. So Hitchcock believed in using as little dialogue as possible because he believed that the eyes can show a lot more than dialogue can. And he achieved this with his next technique, point of view shots, which is basically filming an actor looking at something and then switching to what the actor is looking at and going back and forth. And if the actor is moving towards the object, the scene is shot from the actor's eyes, and it makes the audience feel like they're a part of the film. And his next technique is montage editing, which is basically close-ups of details which combine into a full picture. So say, for example, like you're walking through your house and you see a piece of fuzz there. You walk a little farther, you see a piece of fuzz there. You walk a little farther and you see your dog chewing up a pillow. So that's basically what montage editing is. So you finally see that those pieces of fuzz were from the dog chewing up the pillow. And he did this because that's the way humans perceive things in their minds. And lastly, suspense is his most important thing in all of his films because it keeps the audience on the edge of their seats pretty much and sort of like guessing what's going to happen next. And that kept the audience engaged. So from all these techniques, he obviously got a lot of honor and praise. So, the clicker's not working.
Is it in the top two buttons?
Okay. So, brings me to my next slide, homages, which is another word for pretty much emulation. So it's like honor and praise and all that stuff, basically through your own work for a certain artist. And some of these homages are Pretty Little Liars, Bates Motel, Psycho series, Family Guy, The Simpsons, etc. So the first one, Pretty Little Liars. This is a scene from one of the episodes where she's in the shower being watched. And this is a scene from one of Hitchcock's most famous films, Psycho, where she's being watched in the shower. Bates Motel. So Bates Motel is basically it's a TV show that's out right now. And it's basically the life of the main character of Psycho, Norman Bates, before he gets to this psycho point in film. And yeah, it's out right now. Psycho series. So the main character in the film Psycho plays Norman Bates in all of the films. But Alfred Hitchcock directed the first two, but then he died. So the main character, Norman Bates, ended up, his real name's Anthony Perkins, and he ended up filming the last two movies in honor of Hitchcock. So Family Guy and The Simpsons. These are basically exact pictures from one of his most famous films, North by Northwest. So, yeah. So people he influenced: Brian De Palma, Steven Spielberg, M. Night Shyamalan, Martin Scorsese, and even more artists. So changes he made: non-horror to horror, non-suspense to suspense, and a sense of realism. So during the time that Hitchcock was a director, the U.S. was going through a lot of war and really rough times. So no one thought to make movies, like scary movies, to scare, people more. But he did, and he wasn't appreciated for it back then, but he is now. Things he encouraged is black and white to color and silent to sound. He didn't change these things, but he started in black and white and silent and moved to color and sound. And that made more artists do the same thing. So getting back to the topic of realism, Psycho was made in the 1960s. Can anybody tell me anything that was going on in the 1960s?
Vietnam.
Yeah, Vietnam. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, so there was Cuban Missile Crisis, the Vietnam War, and all those other things. So the U.S. was in a very fragile state, and he was basically creating a horror film and shoving it into a nation that was already full of fear, which scared people. And also, fun fact for you guys, the main character of Norman Bates in Psycho was actually modeled after an actual serial killer of the time, which his name is Ed Gein, and that scared people a lot too. So authenticity was provided in a lot of his films too, like in The Birds, which is, it's a film about birds, and it provided authenticity because he had his actress actually forcefully attacked by birds to provide an authentic feel to the film. And as crazy as that sounds, it was actually really brilliant because the movie is a hit today still. And he also used common fears. For example, in Vertigo, it's a movie about a man's fear of heights, and a lot of people are afraid of that. And his fears are portrayed in all of his movies. He's pretty much afraid of everything. For example, Psycho, he's afraid of his mother and afraid of getting stabbed, and they're both in that movie. Birds, he's afraid of birds. And Vertigo, he's afraid of heights. So, yeah. And he made all of his films relatable and believable with all his techniques. So these are all of his, well, not all of them, a few awards that he got. And a few I'd like to point out is the Jussie Award, which is a Best Foreign Filmmaker, and he got that 4 years after he died. And the Posthumous Award, which is an After Death Award, he got that in 1994, which was 14 years after he died. So I thought that was pretty interesting to me. And it proves that his movies were very loved and he was an influential person. So now I want to move to my emulation. So, okay, so my emulation,
You need help with the screen?
I'm gonna,
Oh, you got it.
well, I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
yeah. Cool. So for my emulation, I chose to take one of the most famous films in cinematic history, which happens to be one of his from the movie Psycho, and his most significant technique, or what he was known for, which was suspense. And I chose to recreate the shower scene from Psycho with paintings. So this is the first painting. It's obviously from somebody's eyes watching a girl in the shower. Can you all see it?
Do you want to turn the lights on? Thanks.
And this is the second picture. It's the girl in the shower, and this is outside the shower curtain. Somebody still watching her outside. And the third picture. Oh. Okay. The third picture, the person's finally revealed, and their intentions are revealed right here. There's a knife, and I made her black because at this point in the scene, you still don't know who this person is. And lastly, this is her screaming right before she gets killed. And the blood splatters are to show that she's about to get killed. It's kind of like symbolism, sort of. So, yeah. And I'd like to conclude by providing you the reason that I chose my artist. So, I chose my artist because basically I watched his movies as a child, and he influenced me a lot. And he basically, I grew up having a really strong appreciation for him. And he made me want to become a director. And when I become a director, if I become a director, I'm going to carry on his legacy. Definitely.